Welcome to Delaware Veteran Services Office. Today we are doing an infocast to give you some information on our own local Delaware County resident, Jason Hughes. Jason works for Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation. He is an Army veteran and he does way more than just that. He's got a long list of titles and names behind him. So we'll just see what he can tell us. Jason, tell me about you.
So again, I'm the Program Manager and Veteran Liaison at the Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation. I've been there for over 5 years now. I am also the co-lead for the Ohio Governor's Challenge team, which it's a collaboration effort with organizations like ours, the Ohio Department, the Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation, the Ohio Department of Veteran Services, the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, the Veterans Affairs, the Ohio Brain Injury Program, and the Ohio Army National Guard. Prior to coming to OSPF, I did serve in the United States Army for 22 years, and I retired in 2019 at the rank of Sergeant First Class.
That's amazing. There's so many things. Can you break those up in what you actually do in your day-to-day and who you deal with?
Yeah, so for my role at the Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation, I do focus on 3 demographics. One obviously being service members, veterans, and their families. The second one is our first responder community, and then the third is our employer, which is essentially everybody in Ohio, anyone within the workforce. And I focus on certain programs revolving around prevention efforts for them.
Wow, that's awesome. That's amazing. You must have like 12-hour days.
Yes. Yes. So when we talk about veterans data, we get that report from our partners at the VA. One thing to know about suicide data revolving veterans and all demographics is that data is always behind. So the latest report that we have from the VA is the 2022 report. And as you can see, we're roughly about 2.5 years behind. We'll get the newer report around the fall of this year. So that's what makes suicide data challenging is, we're always trying to catch up to the data because it's behind. So based on the 2022 report, we know that Ohio specific, we lost 232 veterans to suicide. One thing to keep in mind about when I use that term veteran, there are many ways to interpret that veteran term. But for us, we're talking about those who have served in the military and are no longer serving. So if we're looking at active duty components, those in the currently National Guard or reserves, that's exempt from this 232 number.
So what kind of programs are you doing right now to prevent suicide, hopefully?
So we have 2 great campaigns that we have many campaigns, but 2 campaigns that really can target our veteran population. And they're what we focus on for the Ohio Governor's Challenge team. The first is our Lifeside Ohio campaign, which is to bridge the gap between gun owners, gun shops, and the mental health services. We know that obviously veterans are people who potentially have guns within their home, so it's to help educate them on safety concerns involving lethal means safety. In other words, someone owns a firearm and they could potentially be suicidal. What are the effective ways to temporarily remove said firearm from the home? The second one is our Man Therapy Ohio campaign. Now, Man Therapy itself is a national campaign. However, at the Ohio Suicide Prevention Foundation, we have the Ohio license. So we have Man Therapy Ohio. So it is specifically targeting the male population. The reason why that's important is the latest report from the Ohio Department of Health regarding suicide data. They're on the 2023 report, so we've got their new report. We know that we lost 1,777 Ohioans to suicide, and 80% of them were males. So it's very important that we have a male-oriented campaign. This campaign is very strategic. It uses humor to target that male population. But when I say humor, they're not making fun of mental health. That's not what we're doing. That's not the intentions. We are meeting men where they are. And we are using things like you can't fix your mental health with duct tape. During October, during the hunting season, that we released a shirt that says, "Talking about your mental health is great, except if there are deer around." So it's very strategic to kind of bridge that gap with men and mental health services by lowering that stigma barrier. Our overall focus is to get men onto the mantherapy.org website to take the 18-point head inspection, which is a self-evaluation of how you are dealing with your mental health. Because we have those Ohio license piece, it will link them with Ohio-specific resources instead of providing them with national resources that may not be in close proximity to the person taking that survey.
Question.
So, it kind of sounds like an oxymoron. I'm not sure. How do men handle talking about themselves with feelings, mental health? I know that's not something that can be easy to get them to open up to.
Yeah, so stigma, navigating the stigma battle with mental health is very challenging, especially for men because they're facing everyday stigma about things like men don't talk about their mental health, men don't cry, men don't open up about their feelings, and that's why we have these campaigns, is to bridge that gap, is to lower that anxiety, to show them that, hey, like, there are other men out there who are quietly struggling. An interesting thing about that is, when I mentioned that Man Therapy campaign, we know from a national perspective, more women access that website than men. It's because they're providing those resources to men, which in itself shows that why this campaign is so important. Because we know that men are not talking about their mental health. And that's why we have campaigns like that, to bridge that gap.
I never thought about that a woman would look at it first and go, oh, my husband could really use this, or brother, or whomever. Women do naturally open up to people a lot easier, a lot better. I'm surprised, but that's exciting. How long have you been doing that program?
We've actually had the Man Therapy campaign for about 4 years, but since we partnered with the amazing folks from the University of Maryland in Baltimore, about a year and a half ago, we've really upped that campaign. And thanks to the great people at the UMB who are just phenomenal at this, they have already tested their methods with the state of Michigan. And Michigan had great results from it, so we kind of copied that model and then put an Ohio spin on it. So about a year and a half with the current grant for that.
So how do you capture the data from that? You're just giving out the information. I know they can go on and find a therapist, right, on the website itself?
Yes and no. That is one thing we're building on there. They just added a therapist piece to the website. It is very new, so we actually have a meeting next week to discuss building that program to where it meets Ohio needs.
So then how are the university and how did Michigan and how are you going to capture how many men are actually using this?
So again, our great staff over at UMB, they capture all this data. They can pull out all website analytics, when people visited the website, how long they spend on each tab, each resource. We get quarterly reports from them because we have a monthly meeting. And so we're able to show, one, how many people that we've connected with, new partners in the state of Ohio, how many times we have presented about the campaign, who all has clicked on certain websites, how many men have joined the older adult population campaign that we just launched, because we know that the older adults in the state of Ohio is a demographic that's often forgotten about, so we're really trying to focus in on that population as well. And then we get all that in a quarterly report from the amazing folks over at the University of Maryland, Baltimore.
That's amazing. So how do you differentiate between veterans and just men in general? Or do you?
We do, it depends on what campaign we're using. And we also knew too that there's a large population of veterans, both male and females, that because the term veteran is sometimes confusing, like I mentioned earlier, they may not realize that they are a veteran, or they have this belief that, you know, I only serve like a year or 2 or 3 years, so my veteran status doesn't count, and so they won't annotate themselves as a veteran. And that's something that we're trying to work on, is like, hey, if you serve, like, be proud of your service. It doesn't matter if you served a year or 20 years, you still raised your right hand and made an oath to this country.
So things like this we could also use our volunteers for, and it would be wonderful to see people interact as one community between veterans and teaching all the other civilians what they know, what they've been through. I can't wait to see you, and I hope that you will be at our next event. And if you have any questions or need anything, please call our office.